designing a product, and Scott can speak into this, is actually achieving something that is beautiful and that people want. And we have some of the most advanced design labs in the world where we explore various materials from metals to glass and in other form factors. But the decisions that were made in putting materials that go into the products are oriented around how it's used and what we hear from our consumers, how it feels in your hand, how it comes in and outside of your pocket, how it actually is accessible and it feels right. It isn't until you actually hold the device. Photography can only do it justice to where you can actually sense the thinking that went into it and some of the design work that went into it. And I think over time, though, it's all of our responsibilities, not necessarily to put more layers of hardware and glass in between the things that really matter to us. So sure, it is a jewel, and we can take more of an approach of having it a tighter design or a heavier design. But the reality is, I personally see the evolution of mobile moving closer to connecting people to people and technology moving out of the way, where you don't necessarily have plastic that's dividing your face and somebody else in front of you. But you still will use these large screen, beautiful devices to watch high resolution video on them. Right? We're never going to put a full 1080p video on your wrist or in your eye. So there's reasons why these devices are evolving and they're turning into beautiful experiences. But there is also room for mobile to change, to reconnect us with the world around us, and not necessarily to just have a novelty of hardware in between our relationships with people and the places that we are.
Ryan, do you think there's room for an operator or carrier to carry a premium, like a purposely made premium product? Something that does not cost $200 on contract, but more and is really premium?
Yeah, I think so. It's not necessarily premium. It could be something that's tailored, right?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be necessarily the materials, but maybe just, like we were talking backstage. Galaxy camera is one extreme, regular smartphones another extreme. Something in the middle, really amazing camera, but not a camera, so just a phone.
Yeah. I think there have been a lot of interest into that over the years that have been very successful. I think that will continue. I think whether it's ultra premium or whether it's something that functions outside of the realm of what you would normally think a mobile device does, or trying to connect multiple screens into one. I think those unique offerings, you'll certainly continue to see those things, and I think there's definitely interest from the operators to find what the customers are not getting out of their devices and meet those demands, even if it's only in a niche fashion right up front.
When you actually look at your question around cameras, and I have a lot of friends that are amateur and also professional cameras, and I always ask them, because I'm not a photographer, what is the best DSLR to buy? What is the best camera that I should have with me? And their answer consistently is the best camera is the one in your pocket. And I think technology has evolved now to actually see how we could use very small form factor devices to change an industry, right? And integrate really the experiences that you need at that moment in capturing that memory, whether it's photo or video. And we're slowly moving that way. Industries are changing because of that.
Yeah, so I want to talk about materials. There's some materials we've seen and some we haven't yet. And I'm kind of wondering how much of you guys, and this is an open question to all of you, how much have you experimented with that, if anything? Ceramic is the first one that comes to mind. It seems like it's used in automotive applications. It's really tough. I mean, you think of ceramic off the top of your head and you think brittle, it's going to break when it drops. No, you mix ceramic that's just unbelievably light and strong. It's probably a price thing. I mean, carbon fiber, Kevlar.
So ceramic is incredibly hard, but it actually is pretty brittle. It drops it breaks like glass. So when you actually drop it off, you drop it thin, like you put on a mobile phone, and drop it. So I think there's a breakthrough there, just kind of what can happen there. So it's not really cost that's kind of key. That's really just the problem, the function of the material properties.
What about other materials
But you could use it maybe more selectively. It's not, it's not the whole phone.
Right. What about Kevlar? I mean, Motorola's on Kevlar. Has anybody done carbon fiber yet?
There's been kind of localized carbon fiber stuff, but not like you would see on a bike.
Well,
and I think even the Kevlar that Motorola did, it was a sheet.
It's just a sheet.
It was just a sheet.
It's
so
just
I think
aesthetic, I think.
there is a limitation there, and I think that's another industry that's kind of ripe for a breakthrough. So I think probably just like Samsung, we're always looking at those materials and we're trying things. And I think what you find with the suppliers is that they push, but they don't push as hard as we push.
Right.
And so when we look at like the HTC One and we do this kind of zero gap construction, you know, nobody came to us and said, hey, you know what we could do is we could composite that all together so when you actually pick it up, it just feels awesome. Nobody came to that. We pushed that, but we work with our suppliers to push. I think, you know, as you look at these industries, what we find is that we're the ones that have to take it to the next level, and we're just kind of trying to like watch the temperature gauge on those and figure out when is the right time to actually really make the jump.
Yeah, and I think from a carrier standpoint, from an operator standpoint, we rely on these guys to push the envelope, to bring those new things to light. It's a delicate balance though, because it's easy to make a phone that's made out of whatever material exists in the world, but to do so in such a way that it still carries that utility. The product isn't limited in utility because of that, whether it's the access to the network, or whether it's RF sensitivity, or whether it's durability. So the product can be carried. I think that's a delicate balance, but always looking for that next thing and creating a product that has practicality, but is beautiful nonetheless.
So just something to mention about the design process itself, and it doesn't start with the material. It doesn't necessarily start by saying, yes, we're going to ship something that uses metal. And okay, designers run around and try to fill out what forms we can use that particular material to do. It actually starts with a much deeper design story, and at least how we want to achieve a certain experience and a certain feel with how you interact with the device. And it moves from not just interacting with the hardware and how it feels in your hand, or whether there's a warmth to it, or whether there are ridges on the edges, but it transcends that, and it moves also into the actual experience, the auditory experience that you have with the device, the actual effects in interacting with the UI. So rather than working on these pieces independently, there's a much deeper inspiration to coming up with what is each of those design stories for all of our products. And of course, for a device like this, which is global in itself around the world, it's achieving some goals for many different people, many different cultures, and so many different tastes as well. And it's through that design process which we discover why we would want to use a particular material and how it exists in an individual's life, rather than starting off with, hey, you know, nobody's done ceramics yet, or nobody's done a phone that works this way, so let's see. But as I mentioned, we have some of the most advanced CMF labs, and for those of you that don't know what CMF is, it's color, material, finish, where we're exploring with different materials, different weights, but we also look into technology in that manner too. So we don't necessarily want to bring technology to the market just because it's available to us. I've walked through some of the most interesting sci-fi labs in the world where you see technology like flexible display technology that may not be ready yet until we can actually find the right use for it to enrich people's lives.
Well, so we kind of have to wrap up, so I want to ask one last question, and I think it's a question around, you know, custom building phones and maybe when we will modular designs, right? Modular designs have been tried before. I think it was a company out of Israel did it a few years back. But what about, you know, you were saying trying to satisfy all these markets. Maybe Scott, you speak on this. What about making a phone you go online, kind of like the mini customator, a customization site, you know, like a car. You just go in and like, I want like racing stripes in the back, and I want this to be made out of aluminum, and this one I want out of machined plastic. And the guts of it are essentially the same. You get the same functionality, the same window into your software. But your hardware is really yours.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's funny, if you look back into the mobile industry, it used to be that you could maybe do some level of that. You remember the old Nokia covers where you could switch out covers, and I think there was definitely this kind of thinking around that. But the smartphones kind of came from a business space, so they've been kind of very professional in nature. But now as they've gone mass market, I think you'll see more at least the kind of form factor customization, and then operationally, I think you can basically trickle in maybe future customization. Be like, oh, you know, how much memory do I want? What processor do I want?
And it's just some Chinese manufacturers tried that.
Yeah, right? That's right.
But I'm thinking, you know, a combination of both. Like, you guys are doing colors with the 8X and the 8S, which is really awesome. They're really great. Nokia's doing really cool stuff with interchangeable cases and all that. They're kind of gone back to their roots in that sense, I think. Do you, in terms of, you know, operator, Ryan, do you see that, is there demand for that? Like, people come to you and say, you know, like, I want to choose between the Evo 4 GLT and the 1X. I want both on Sprint because I want exactly the same phone as my friend, or no, I want to differentiate myself and get the customized version.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's probably an area where you'll see expansion over time. I think creating global products, global franchises, and creating the devices in scale is important for the industry, but I think the ability to be able to customize around that, I think is just as important, and I think you'll see the industry definitely making an attempt to do that.
Great. Well, I mean, thanks so much for, you know, the great discussion. I think we should probably take some questions. I'm supposed to have an iPad somewhere. You have it here? Awesome. This is like the magic window into my universe of questions. So let's see what's going on here. Oh my God. So many questions. Let's see. I'll start with one random here. Somebody named Mayor Professor on Twitter. Can we see more phones in a smaller form factor similar to the S3 Mini? And I would say similar to, I guess, the 8X, which is a flagship with a 4.3-inch screen, which I desperately want to see happening in an Android phone for you guys. And why is, you know, conversely, why is the S3 Mini not really an S3?
Yeah, so looking at designing where technology is moving and the experiences that our consumers are actually asking for, you know, we're looking at bringing advancements in screen size and also use. So at Samsung, we have many products, as you know, and we have many products for various markets. So I think it's common for us to also produce smaller phones. You're also aware of the Note 2, which is in the very beginning, a lot of the market looked at it as a very giant phone. But as people started using those devices, they realized there was actually value in that real estate, and it turned into an experience for browsing the web in a new way, and it turned into new app experiences. The integration of S Pen enabled us to actually enrich more experiences that made it a little more human that you were writing. And so the experience itself calls for the screen size, and I believe we've evolved to a sweet spot for the phone on how we actually use these devices. We use a lot of these devices for consumption, so the screen actually grew for consumption. As technology evolves and we want to stay connected to things that are important to us, we may find that we're taking this out of our market less and less, so there may be various form factors that may assist that. Yes. Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a question we look at all the time. I think there's definitely an opportunity there. We're just got to figure out if the economics make sense.
Right. What about the carriers? How do you guys feel about, I mean, Sprint anyway.
Yeah.
How do you feel about a flagship like an Evo that's not compromised in any way, but just smaller for people who like smaller phones?
Yeah, our research shows us that our customers want that. They want that super phone in a compact form factor, so we're going to pursue it.
Great. I got another question here from Marin Perez. Hello, Marin, wherever you are. Will we see an emphasis on battery life as opposed to being lighter and thinner? This is obviously a big question for a lot of people out there. Motorola has shown that that can be pretty successful. So, sorry, I'll read it again.
Battery life versus thin.
Will we see an emphasis on battery life as opposed to being thinner and lighter?
Yeah, we as an operator, we place heavy emphasis on battery life because that's one of those utility things, and getting through the day is something that I would call a table stakes requirement for our products. And design teams have obviously taken notice and gone that way. I think battery technology is now accelerating again, and you're looking at more on how can you fit more into less. But even looking at different designs and something that's not
think both can be achieved, and you can have thinner designs, more beautiful experiences, but a beautiful device doesn't mean anything if you're unable to use it. And so we put a lot of stress in that area and actually not only making it through your day, but beyond that. And I was actually blown away when I moved to the Note 2 and I realized I was going 2 days without charging it. And that was some of the updates to the S4, where it's actually improved the battery life closer to the Note 2 standard and beyond the S3. So I think those advancements can be achieved where we can actually design and develop beautiful, thin devices and improve on battery life as well. But I think just to end on battery, again, it can be a jewel that sits in your pocket, but that's all